Welcome viewers, students, for this new lecture in continuation of the previous one where we discussed the Vedic literature as a basis of Indian knowledge traditions. Now in this particular lecture we are going to discuss literature of Pali, Prakrit and Tamil languages, Jain, Buddhist and Sangam eras, basically or philosophies. So agenda for today's discussion is like that. What is the importance of Jaina and Buddha literature? Then role of Sangam literature, place of literature in post-Vedic, content and subject matter. So these are the primary points for discussion. Just let's have a look. The timeline of this particular literature, first Renaissance 6th century BC. As in the previous lecture we discussed that 6th century BC starts with the emergence of Jainas and Buddhist schools of thought, and they gave their ideas as a contradictory to the philosophical ideas of the Vedic period. However, they did not reject entirely the Vedas. Rather, they just gave their non-assessment or non-consensus on certain aspects of Vedic ritualism or over-exorcism. Otherwise, they adopted many of the things of the Vedic ideologies or Vedic philosophies. Charvaka was against the dharma and moksha, but he was not against the artha and kama. So in one sense, he is also not discarding the entire Vedic ideas in complete manner. So he is also adopting at least the half of the Vedic ideas. So in that way, that's called the Renaissance. That's not entirely revolution against Vedas, rather it's just a philosophical awakening. Then Mauryas and Guptas, and then Sangamas, the 3rd century BC and 3rd century CE. So this is the time period. On the map of India, you may see from Kamboj, Gandhar was actually that time the part of India. And today, whatever a map of India we see, that was entirely different at that time. There was no question of geographical or political boundaries at that time. India was divided into many sections or divided. We cannot even, at that time, what could be the nature of geographical idea of India or the political idea of India or the nationalist idea of India, we cannot even imagine today. So, on the basis of the records what are available in these resources, even also you see Puranas, also one of the Puran also talks about, the Vishnu Puran also talks about the name of this nation, and Abhigyan Shakuntalam also mentions. So, at that time that this nation was known by the multiple names. These are the 16 Mahajanpads. They emerged after the later Vedic period, and these Mahajanpadas were basically the units of political administration: Avanti, Matsya, Kuru, Panchal, Koshala, Kashi, Magadha. Magad emerged as the most powerful kingdom out of the 16, and in and around all the Mahajanpadas were just under the political administration of Magadha later on, because he emerged as a center of power. So Kashi and that Koshala, or these are the Kapil Vastu, these were the places which were associated with the Buddhist and Jaina philosophy. Bodh or Jain literature, the importance of this literature is basically Buddhist literature profoundly influenced Indian knowledge traditions across philosophy, logic, ethics and sciences. It introduced new concepts, fostered a rational spirit of inquiry and created an extensive body of text. Its impacts challenged and enriched existing system, promoting dialogue or prompting dialogue and refinement in other philosophical schools. Teaching of Mahatma Buddha and Mahavir Jain basically, and their sermons were offered in the language of the masses, that was Pali and Prakrit. That's why it became very popular, because Vedas were offered in the Sanskrit language. That was not the language of the masses, that was the language of the high caste or high status people who were involved in acquisition of learning, rishis and manishis and the brahmanas. And the language of Pali and Prakrit was the language of the people. So later on, Buddhist literature was also written in Sanskrit. It was not so that Sanskrit was discarded by Buddhism, rather many good texts are there in Sanskrit. Rejection of caste system, text like Ashwaghoshas, Vajra, Shuchi presented a direct critique of the caste system, advocating for social equity and promotion of medicine. Like medicine was an important subject of study in ancient Buddhist universities like Nalanda and Takshila. Buddhist monks carried Ayurvedic knowledge to other countries, and physicians like Jivaka gained renown for their skill. Jivaka was one of the very important name in ancient India, who was also the Rajvaid to the Bimbisar. Bimbisar was a king of, I think, Haryanka dynasty. And storytelling traditions were introduced by the Buddhist literature, like Jataka tales conveyed complex ethical teachings through relatable moral fables. So that's why Buddhist or Jain literature have a specific importance in Indian knowledge traditions. How they are different from Vedic literature? Language and transmission. One difference is there, because Vedic Sanskrit and Pali and Prakrit are the main language of Jain and Buddhist literature. Buddhist literature is in Pali and Jain literature is in Prakrit, and Vedic literature is in Sanskrit. Then origin and authorship. Vedic literature is basically considered as embedded in priestly ritual traditions, hymn attributed to seers, rishis, and compiled by ritual lineages. They are considered as aparushe. Some divine source are responsible for the creation of these Vedas. But Buddhists and Jainas, they centered on founders' teaching, like Buddhas and Mahaviras are the founders of these philosophies, and their teachings are compiled in the literature offered by Buddhism and Jainism. And religious focus on goal. Vedic emphasizes on sacrifice, yajna, rit or cosmic order, and correct ritual to secure prosperity and divine favor, while Buddhist and Jain emphasize on liberation, nirvana, moksha through ethical conduct, renunciation, meditation, or strict asceticism and non-violence by Jainism. Then literary genre and style. Vedic basically offer the hymns, that is suktas or the brahmanas or the aranyakas or the Upanishads, poetic and ritual prose. But Buddhist and Jain literature, they are in the form of sutras or the shastras, agamas or the vinaya, monastic rules or the abhidharma or the analytical work like jatakas and didactic stories, more dialogical and didactic prose. So multiple pedagogical methods were applied in the Buddhist and Jain literature. And again you see philosophical method. Vedic Upanishads, Vedic or Upanishadic literature offers speculative metaphysics and symbolic ritual interpretation, while Buddhist and Jain philosophy or Jain literature, systematic psychological analysis, logical debate, or the epistemology and rigorous ethical psychology. Then accessibility and audience, that's very important aspect of the difference. Vedic initially restricted ritual knowledge transmitted among Brahmins, specialist, later Sanskrit commentarial culture. Brahmins were only entitled to interpret the meaning of or explain the meaning of any Vedic mantra. Buddhist and Jain traditions, greater use of vernaculars and didactic stories like Jataka, fables, making teachings accessible to broader population. So they made the content simple and accessible by the general people. Even they could interpret the moral teaching of any special content of the literature. Historical influence and spread. Vedic shaped ritual, law, caste, ideology, and later Hindu thought. That became the basis of Hindu thought. Then Buddhist and Jain literature, they spread widely across Asia, influenced philosophy, medicine, art, monastic education, and cross-cultural exchange. So they were wider in scope, they were wider in space and time. And now Buddhist literature basically divided into three pitakas, three categories. Vinay Pitaka, rules for the Sangha, that is monastic community. And we have already discussed it in one of the initial lectures, so we will not repeat the discussion in order to save the time. And then you see Sutra or Sutta Pitaka, discourses of the Buddhas. Main contents, canonical groupings or Theravada examples of Sutta Pitakas are basically these are the Nikayas. So Digha Nikaya or the Madhyam Nikaya or the Samyukta Nikaya, Anguttar Nikaya or the Khuddaka Nikaya. So these are the subcategories. They talk about the ethical, metaphysical discourses or the practical teachings or the Dhammapada or the Jatak tales, so on. And then third one is the Abhidhamma Pitaka. They talk about the systematic analysis of the doctrine, whatever Buddhism offers, that is explained here in this category of knowledge. So only Vinay Pitaka is concerned with the moral teachings or the behavior or the conduct and so on. So in that these are the original literatures or the initial literatures, three Pitakas. Later on, Buddhist literature, what was composed in the Sanskrit was Buddha Charitra by Ashwaghosh, Saundaryanand, Ashwaghosh, and Madhyamik Karika or Madhyamik Siddhanta by the Nagarjun. Vasubandhu also presented. Harsh Vardhan himself wrote, he was also a great follower of the Buddhism. He also wrote certain natakas, and he was also inspired by the teachings of the Buddhism. Ashoka the Great was also a follower of the Buddhism. Now coming towards the Jain literature, Agamas. Main Jain literature consists of, the language of Jain literature is basically Prakrit, especially Ardhamagadhi and Shorseni. Shorseni is the dialect, the local effect of language. Later commentaries and philosophical works were written in Sanskrit and regional languages. Jain literature is divided into two main traditions, Shvetambara and Digambara. And then canonical texts are known as the Agam literature. Agamas are the sacred scriptures containing the teachings of Tirthankar Mahavir. Mahavir was the 24th Tirthankar and Rishabdev was the first Tirthankar. There is a tradition in the Jain system that Tirthankars are the people, they are the like the teachers who disseminate the teachings of the entire system of philosophy. So this is a chain of Tirthankaras, chain of these great peoples. Mahavir Jain was not the propounder of the Jainism, rather he was just the last of 24 Tirthankaras. So in that perspective, we will discuss further if get time. Originally 12 Angas or the sections, but the 12 Drishtivada is considered lost, or but now some are remained. They record Mahavira's sermons on ethics, discipline, philosophy and spiritual practices, preserved mainly by Shvetambara sect. Digambaras believe the original were lost early. So whatever literature we find today, these are because of the efforts of the Shvetambara sect. Then the 12 Angas are there, main canonical text on your screen. You may pause it and you may note it down, you may read it down. These are the names in normally in the Prakrit language. 12 Angas are there. Then 12 Upangas are there. Subsidiary texts are also there. These are also mentioned on your screen. You may again pause it. And then 10 Prakirnakas are there. They are known as the miscellaneous text. So these are also again there. So this is the entire corpus of the Jain literature. And then you see again the 6 Cheda Sutras or the disciplinary text and the 4 Mula Sutras, that is the basic text, are also there. Nishtha and Mahanishtha and Vyavahara, Acharya Dasha or Jayaka, Uttara Grantha. These are the, and they normally describe the rules for confession and atonement for offenses, supplementary rules, discipline and repentance, 10 rules of conduct and ethical duties. So most of the time Jaina literatures are talking about the extreme asceticism and moral teachings and behavior and conduct and how to behave, how to live the life of peace and non-violence and so on. So these are the teachings confined in this entire body of Jain literature. Then examples and descriptions are given again on your screen about the 6 Cheda Sutras and 4 Mula Sutras. Then notable later Jain works post-canonical. Canonical is the original literature, and the some other people also composed. Hemchand Suri and Haribhadra Suri are the notable writers who composed great books on the Jain philosophy, like Yoga Shastra, grammar, or comparative study of 6 philosophical systems of the great Jain polymath of Gujarat, literary and historical works by Hemchand and Haribhadra Suri. So, major themes in Jain literature include ethical conduct, ahimsa, satya, aparigraha, and spiritual discipline and monastic rules, doctrine of karma and liberation or moksha, logic and epistemology, Syadvad and Anekantvad, this is the unique theory given by Jain philosophy, cosmology and universe structure, stories of renunciation and moral examples, pedagogical principles like Syadvad, or the relativity of knowledge, is a very unique concept given by Jain philosophy. And here we come to the Sangam literature. Historical and cultural context is like that the term Sangama means an assembly or academy of poets, legendary even long before Vedic age, because they claim that even Tamil language is older than the Sanskrit language as a cultural origin. So, three Sangamas were held. A historical Sangam literature refers to the earliest body of Tamil literary works composed roughly between 300 before Christ to 300 Christian era. Traditions speaks of three Sangamas held under Pandya kings in Madurai. So, two are legendary Sangamas. Third one is the historical Sangamas, whose literature is even today we find. It was produced under the Tamil Sangamas, academies of poets. What do we mean by the Sangam? This is the academies of poets and scholars. Sangam means meeting point. So, academy of poets and scholars, they meet at one point. They flourished in ancient Tamilkam was the Pradesh or the area where it was held. Present day Tamil Nadu and the parts of the Kerala. Ancient time it was known as the Tamilkam. It represents one of the oldest secular literature of India. That is the peculiarity of Tamil literature, showing advanced ideas of society, ethics and governance parallel to but distinct from Vedic and Sanskrit traditions. If you just compare the Tamil literature and the Vedic literature, you find that Vedic literature is most of the time is either talks about the supernatural things or deities or the religion or the performances or the worship or the rituals or the gods or the Atma or Paramatma and such things. But this Tamil literature talks about this world and the worldly people and their life, their society or their ways of living the life, like agriculture, different types of lands. That the beauty of this Tamil literature is particularly is this age is that they describe the four types of lands, and all the entire content of the literature is based on that land, that kind of land and the people living on that land. So, in between they also talk about the Atma and Paramatma, but they are the part of the human life. So, this literature is basically concerned with the human aspects of philosophy, and that Vedic literature is cosmological or the divine aspects of the human life on earth. The poems reflect social life, love, war, nature, ethics and statecrafts rather than religious ritual, showing the Dravidian cultural worldwide. So, they give more emphasis to the human life and art craft rather than the religious rituals. Sangam age in South India or Tamilkam is like that. On your screen you may see the map is given, and here you see that this is the Chera, Chola and Pandyas and modern day Kerala or some part of Tamil Nadu. These were the places. The Tamilkam period refers to the ancient Tamil country, modern day Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka and so on. This era was known for Tamil literature as well as organized society based on agriculture and so on. So, major Sangam literature, we just talk about it. The literature of this era is categorized as follows: Tolkappiyam, a foundational work on Tamil grammar and poetics attributed to the poet Tolkappiyar. It is considered the earliest extant Tamil text and also provides socio-economic and political conditions of the Sangam period. Then another is the 8 anthologies, Attu Thogai. I don't know what's the correct pronunciation in Tamil language. If you belong to that language, so please correct me by any way, or just pardon me if I am pronouncing wrong, because this is not my language. But in English, I can spell as well. 8 anthologies, the collection of the poetries, collection of 8 major works of poetry focusing on various themes of love and public life. That's the very important aspect. And then 10 idols, that is Patu Pattu. This is a collection of 10 poetic works known for their detailed descriptions and poetic excellence. So, this is a collection of the 10 the works by the 10 poets. And then another is the collection of 18 works focusing on ethics and morality, and then Tirukkural, that I can spell well, Tirukkural, because I have one copy of Tirukkural in my personal library by the Thiruvalluvar. And this was one of the very, you can say, the very favorite book of our ex-president Bharat Ratna APJ Abdul Kalam. So from his inspiration, I purchased one copy of Therukural, and still it is with me. A wonderful book, beautiful book, a highly important didactic text within this category, offering moral, ethical, and philosophical guidance. Five great epics include, because this is the entire, you see, the beauty of this Sangam literature, Shilapadikaram and that Mani Meglai and Jivaga Sintamadi. These three are basic books, and two more are there. These fourth and fifth are also there. These are the five great epics, and they have the same value as in North India. We have the epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana. In South India, in Tamil literature, these three epics have the same value. Believed to have been composed in the post-Sangam period, 4th and 6th century. These narrative poems showcase the values and religious themes of the time. Shilapadikaram, the tale of the anklet, authored by Ilangodigal. It follows the story of Kannagi, who avenges her husband's death. And in Mani Meghla, you see, authored by Shittalai Sattanar. This epic is a sequel to Shilapadikaram and follows the journey of Mani Meghla, Kannagi's daughter, as she becomes a Buddhist nun. So beautiful stories there covered, even very emotional stories there. Sometimes you feel very sorrowful and very in a very gloomy mood, and you will also feel spiritually charged after reading, after having read. So translations are also available in English and your own language. So I suggest you go through these five, at least the 2 or 3 epics. Then major themes of Tamil literature is Sangam poetry generally deals with 2 broad themes. One is the Akam, love or personal life. Poems focusing on themes of love, marriage and family life, often using the landscape, Thinai as a metaphor. Puram, war or public life. Poems that celebrate heroic deeds, warfare, kingship and public life. Characteristics of Sangam literature: secular outlook, focuses on human life, emotions and society rather than ritual or theology. Realistic depiction describes landscapes, we have just discussed it, that is called the Tinai. Kings, common people, trade and warfare. Moral and ethical tone emphasizes honor, generosity, courage, chastity and love. Blend of poetry and geography. The Tinai system connects human emotions of 5 kinds of landscapes. One is the Kurinji, that is mountain, Mullai, that is forest, Murutam, that is farmland, Neathal, that is coastal, and Pali, that is desert. These are the 5 categories of land, and the people inhabitant on these lands and their life and their social affairs and all other things, they are the subject matter of the poetry of the Tamil literature. Then social diversity portrays farmers, warriors, traders, poets and women, indicates an advanced civic and political life. Influence of Jainism and Buddhism. Many poets belong to these faiths, reflecting ideals of non-violence and detachment. Then rich linguistic heritage, early classical Tamil and refined grammar and meter as per Tolkappiyam, oldest Tamil grammar treatise. So Sangam literature and Indian knowledge traditions, historical sources, ethical philosophy, linguistic value, and integration of nature and human emotions, then complement to Vedic culture, then influence on later Bhakti movement. So now I am winding up this talk with these beautiful words of Mark Twain. The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. Thank you very much. See you in the next discussion, next lecture. God bless you.